Mark Twitchell was a filmmaker with an obsession that would eventually lead him to commit horrific crimes. Born on July 4, 1979 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, to Bill and Marilyn Twitchell, Mark grew up in what appeared to be a normal family environment. There were no records of domestic violence or childhood trauma. However, even at a young age, Mark displayed unusual habits compared to children his age. While most kids enjoyed playing outdoors, riding bikes with friends, and engaging in typical childhood activities, Mark preferred solitude, spending countless hours watching horror films, thrillers, and violent movies. By his teenage years, he had become increasingly immersed in his own world, writing strange stories that revolved around mysteries and murders. He created narratives about sadistic characters who killed people with various motives. Rather than being disturbed by these dark themes, Mark found them fascinating. He considered the villains in his stories and in the films he watched to be clever because they always had cunning ways to trap and hurt their victims. This fascination with dark themes eventually led Mark to develop aspirations of becoming a filmmaker. To pursue his dream, Mark enrolled at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, where he studied radio and television arts. There, he learned about directing, editing, scriptwriting, and other aspects of filmmaking, focusing entirely on what he loved. During his college years, Mark was known for being creative and actively involved in film projects within the campus community. His ambition to create his own films grew even stronger during this time. After graduating, Mark wanted to focus on making sci-fi, horror, and psychological thriller films, genres he had loved since childhood. Unfortunately, he couldn't immediately fulfill this dream due to lack of funds. While waiting to accumulate enough money, Mark decided to work and got married to Megan, his college friend, in 2001. After they married, Megan began to notice Mark's increasingly concerning behaviors. He spent a significant amount of time lost in thought, writing strange stories, and completely absorbed in his own world, often neglecting his job and family. Megan also suspected that Mark had an unhealthy obsession with fictional characters from thriller films. These issues eventually led to their divorce in 2005. Following his divorce from Megan, Mark announced to his friends that he was planning a major project for 2007, a film titled Star Wars: Secret of the Rebellion. This was a fan film not officially produced or recognized by Lucasfilm, the owner of the Star Wars franchise. Despite being unofficial, Mark approached it with serious dedication, including a director, script, actors, and special effects. His goal was to demonstrate his love for the franchise and prove his worth in the filmmaking world. He put all his effort and resources into making this fan film successful. During this same period, feeling the need for companionship to fill the void in his life, Mark decided to try online dating through an application called Plenty of Fish. Through this platform, he began dating a woman from Illinois named Jessie. A few months later, they married and settled in Canada. However, less than a year into their marriage, Mark's relationship with Jessie began to deteriorate. He was more focused on his Star Wars project than on working to support their family. Despite investing significant time and energy into the film, the project ultimately fell apart due to poor organization and insufficient production funds. The film never made it beyond the promotion stage. Following this failure, Mark began lying to his wife. He would frequently disappear, claiming to be busy with his Star Wars project, but in reality, he was often secluding himself in an empty garage he had rented in the Millwoods area, not far from his parents' home. This garage became his personal hideout, where he continued writing thriller scripts and developing a secret project that he documented in his diary. Mark not only lied about working on his film project, but also told Jesse that he had a full-time job as a marketing employee at a company. Every morning, he would leave home in professional attire, departing early and returning late, when in fact he wasn't working at all. He spent his days wandering the city looking for writing inspiration and then locking himself in his garage. Eventually, Jesse discovered his deception, and when confronted, Mark admitted to his lies. Furious, Jesse kicked him out of their home. After being kicked out, Mark's only refuge was the garage he had rented. There, he spent his time developing a new script inspired by the American crime TV series Dexter, about a serial killer. He completed a full manuscript which he named House of Cards, a fictional story about a serial killer who deceives his victims through online dating and then murders them in a basement. Mark believed this script had great potential for a film, and with his characteristic ambition, he decided to film House of Cards in 2008. The filming involved several friends from his community as actors, with his rented garage serving as the shooting location. The garage was set up to resemble a murder room, with a metal table in the center, plastic-covered floors, red liquid to create fake blood, and various sharp weapons. The film was eventually produced, but its release fell far short of Mark's expectations. Instead of being shown in theaters, the film was only screened to a limited audience within the local film community. Disappointed that his film wasn't getting wider recognition, Mark began to contemplate something more extreme. If my film can't live in theaters, I'll bring it to life in the real world. Driven by this twisted ambition, Mark began planning an extreme action that would ultimately endanger the lives of others, all to bring his House of Cards story into reality. Mark's fascination with the TV series Dexter went beyond mere inspiration. He was captivated by the character Dexter, who he considered incredibly cool because as a serial killer, Dexter could take the lives of criminals while still being perceived as a good person. Mark began to view Dexter not just as a fictional character, but as a role model, to the point where he wanted to become the next Dexter in real life. To fulfill this ambition, Mark started seeing himself as the protagonist, like Dexter but from his House of Cards film, who would trap and execute random people. This disturbing fantasy soon became reality when Mark put his plan into action in October 2008. He began by creating a fake profile on the Plenty of Fish dating app, the same platform where he had met his wife Jessie. However, this time Mark posed as a woman named Sheena. He used a photo of an attractive woman he found on the internet and described Sheena in the bio as single, 29 years old, with interests in films, music, and being open-minded to new experiences. His targets were men. Soon after creating the fake profile, numerous men began messaging Sheena. Mark engaged them in casual conversations, carefully crafting his language to appear polite and sweet. After establishing rapport, he would invite these men to meet at his home, actually his garage base. Among the men who accepted Sheena's invitation was Gillis Tatro, a contractor looking for a serious relationship. Feeling a connection with Sheena during their conversations, Gillis agreed to meet on Friday night, October 3rd, 2008. When Gillis arrived at the location, he was hesitant upon seeing that it was just a dark garage with a partially open rolling door. There was no sign of anyone around. When he questioned if this was the right place, Sheena assured him it was, instructing him to enter through the garage door, claiming, "My home entrance is through the garage." Gillis complied and entered. As he was trying to find the light switch in the darkness, someone suddenly grabbed him from behind. Within seconds, he was attacked with a stun gun, causing him to fall to the ground. The attacker, who was Mark Twitchell wearing a mask, then pointed a gun at Gillis, ordering him to lie face down and not move. Initially, Gillis obeyed, especially after being stunned and having his eyes and mouth covered with black duct tape. However, after a few moments, his survival instinct kicked in. He realized he needed to escape from this dark garage. Gillis managed to tear the tape from his eyes and mouth and grabbed the gun from Mark, only to discover it was a toy. A struggle ensued, with Mark attempting to lock Gillis in a hold from behind. Fortunately, Gillis was wearing a jacket that he was able to slip out of, allowing him to escape through the gap in the rolling door. Despite his terrifying experience, Gillis chose not to report the incident to the police. He was embarrassed that people might discover he had been tricked by a man during an online dating encounter. Additionally, Gillis dismissed Mark as just a crazy person playing a prank on random individuals, reasoning that what mattered most was that he had escaped unharmed. Having failed in his first attempt, Mark didn't give up. A few days later, on October 10th, 2008, he tried again and succeeded in luring 38-year-old John Altinger through the same dating app. Like Gillis, John was deceived by Sheena's profile, and after extensive conversations, agreed to meet. Before heading to the meeting, John met with his friends and mentioned that he was going to meet a woman he had connected with on Plenty of Fish. He told them the woman's home was near Millwoods. Similar to Gillis' experience, when John arrived at the address provided by Sheena, he was puzzled to find only a garage with its door slightly open in an otherwise dim setting. Again, Sheena assured him this was the right place and instructed him to enter. As John parked his car and walked through the rolling door, Mark ambushed him from behind, repeatedly striking him with a lead pipe. Unlike Gillis, John didn't have the opportunity to fight back. His fate was far worse. Mark pulled out a knife and brutally stabbed him until he died, covered in blood. As if this wasn't enough, Mark then dragged John's body to a table in the garage and dismembered it into several parts. The horrifying part was that Mark performed these actions with a sense of pride, as if he was Dexter eliminating someone evil and delivering appropriate justice, though John and Gillis were innocent people who had done nothing wrong. Satisfied with his work, Mark decided to burn some parts of John's body and place the rest in garbage bags, which he disposed of in a sewage system in Edmonton near his parents' home. This entire sequence, from creating a fake profile on Plenty of Fish to disposing of John's remains in the sewage system, was carried out exactly as described in the House of Cards script he had written. For Mark, this wasn't just murder, it was bringing his artistic vision to life, a real-world manifestation of his film. After carrying out his heinous act, Mark didn't immediately flee or try to hide his traces. Instead, he began crafting an elaborate digital trail to make John's death appear like a normal departure. 3 days after John's murder, on October 13th, 2008, John's family and friends received emails from John's account stating that he was going on vacation to Costa Rica with his online date and would be staying there until December 10th, 2008. The email mentioned that no phone number would be available, but John would check his emails regularly. Simultaneously, John's employer received an email containing his resignation letter. When the employer replied asking for an address to send John's final paycheck, there was no response, as the person controlling the account was Mark, not John. Several days after receiving these emails, John's friends became suspicious. First, they noticed that the language used in the emails didn't sound like John. Second, it was unusual for John to simply send an email announcing a vacation. Third, they recalled that John had mentioned meeting an online date just days before. It seemed unlikely that he would go on a months-long vacation with someone he had just met. Concerned, John's friends decided to visit his home to check on him. When they arrived, they found the door locked. Given that John had said he was on vacation, this wasn't surprising, but their suspicions led them to force entry to investigate further. After examining the house, they became even more convinced that John couldn't have gone on vacation, as the emails claimed. All his personal belongings, including clothes, suitcase, and passport, were still in the house. This discovery prompted them to contact the police. They also remembered John mentioning the location of his date, in Millwoods. With this information, police visited the address, Mark's rented garage. When the police arrived, they found a white car garage with someone standing near a Mazda car in front of it. This was Mark, and the Mazda belonged to John. When questioned about John's visit, Mark casually responded, "Yes, he was here 3 days ago to sell me this car for $40. He said he was going on vacation with his girlfriend overseas." The police immediately found this suspicious. A Mazda selling for just $40, about $380 in 2008, was implausible. They asked to inspect the garage, and Mark consented. Inside, the police were shocked to find numerous red stains resembling blood on the floor and walls. When questioned about these stains, Mark claimed they were fake blood. "I'm a filmmaker and recently finished making a thriller called House of Cards. The execution scenes were quite violent, so we used fake blood, and we shot those scenes here in this garage." The police asked who else was involved in the film, and Mark confidently provided a list of actors. The police contacted one of the actors, who was confused by their questions. When asked about the amount of fake blood used during the execution scene in the garage, the actor replied, "There was no fake blood used when we shot in the garage. We only filmed basic fight scenes." This discrepancy led the police to suspect that the red stains in Mark's garage might be real blood, possibly connected to John's disappearance. Upon returning to the garage, the police found that the floor and walls had been cleaned, with no visible blood stains remaining. Undeterred, they decided to conduct a luminol test on the area. After spraying luminol and turning off the lights, they discovered numerous blue glowing traces, indicating the presence of human blood, and there was a lot of it. Additionally, when examining John's Mazda parked outside, the police found blood stains in the trunk. With these findings, the police suspected that Mark had likely killed John. Their suspicion was further strengthened when they discovered a secret file on Mark's laptop, a 42-page Word document titled SK Confessions. This document detailed a plan to eliminate strangers by luring them through fake online dating profiles and bringing them to an execution site where they would be killed. The story perfectly matched the plot of Mark's House of Cards film and aligned with what had happened to John, from the online dating method to the killing technique. Based on this evidence, Mark was arrested on October 31st, 2008, on suspicion of first-degree murder of John Altiangor. While in police custody, Mark consistently denied killing John, insisting he had only purchased his car. However, the case against him strengthened when Gillis Tatro, Mark's first victim who had managed to escape, came forward as a witness. Gillis had seen news about Mark on TV and immediately recognized the similarities to his own experience: the online date, the garage, the attack. Despite his initial embarrassment about being deceived by a man through a dating app, Gillis decided to provide his testimony to the police. "What happened to John was exactly what happened to me," Gillis told the police. "The only difference is that I managed to escape, while John apparently didn't survive." He confirmed that the pattern was identical. They were both tricked through a dating app, directed to the garage, and then attacked with various weapons. Gillis' testimony significantly strengthened the case against Mark. After 20 months in custody, Mark finally confessed to killing John, though he claimed it was in self-defense, alleging that John had attacked him first. Mark also revealed where he had disposed of the body, leading police to the sewage system in Edmonton, as he had described. There, they found John's remains scattered in pieces, which were eventually recovered and given a proper burial. About 8 months after the discovery of the remains, in March 2011, Mark's first trial officially began. During the proceedings, the prosecutor presented the contents of SK confessions as the main evidence of premeditated murder. The prosecutor was convinced that this document was Mark's diary, detailing his plan to kill random individuals, including the storyline, victim profiles, and execution location. All the details matched both Gillis' case and John's murder, along with the blood traces found in the garage and in John's car trunk. The prosecution emphasized that Mark was clearly guilty of premeditated murder and deserved appropriate punishment. Mark still maintained his defense, claiming, "I did kill John, but I did it in self-defense. As for SK confessions, that's just fiction I wrote after the killing occurred, not a plan for murder." However, his defense was shattered by Gillis' testimony, who described in detail how Mark had tricked and attacked him. Gillis was certain that Mark had done the same to John. Faced with the mounting evidence and testimony, Mark's lies and dark fantasies finally collapsed. He finally admitted, "Yes, I killed John because I was inspired by the TV series Dexter, and I wanted to make my own film come to life with Dexter, my role model, as the main character." Based on this confession, the jury found Mark guilty of first-degree murder, and in April 2011, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Mark Twitchell, whose life was once filled with ambition to become famous through his film work, ended up behind bars. This is the dark story of filmmaker Mark Twitchell, who initially appeared ordinary but harbored a dangerous obsession to live like his fictional idol. Beginning with his admiration for the character Dexter, Mark gradually lost the distinction between fiction and reality, eventually transforming into a monster who was willing to take innocent lives. This case isn't just about murder. It's a reminder of the dangers of becoming too immersed in obsession. Starting from an obsession, fantasy can develop to the point where we can no longer distinguish between the real world and illusion. Remember, having dreams is fine, but don't lose touch with reality. Never justify any means to fulfill ego and ambition, as it can destroy many lives, including your own. May we always be protected from unhealthy obsessions and excessive ambitions, and may we always find safety wherever we are.